Today on Dodson's Corner, we are answering the age-old debate. Who is the best striker in the UFC? Me and Dylan have both made lists. We have 10 fighters up on screen right now. These are some of the 10 best fighters that I picked out, the strikers of the UFC. And we're going to see in a pound-for-pound style matchup who is walking out of the octagon if they could only strike.
Stand and bang, baby.
Exactly. UFC 5 mode, stand and bang. Let's go.
Starting off at number 10, the worst striker by far on this list, Leon Rocky Edwards.
No, are you serious?
100%.
Oh, wow. This is already going to piss off a lot of fans.
Dude's got pillow hands. He doesn't put people away. He's a decision merchant.
But he is... it's tough, man.
You can't argue.
No, I can, because his striking is so good.
It's so good, but we also have the best strikers in the UFC who actually finish people.
That's tough. That's a hard pill to swallow for English fans.
Well, it's okay. You got another English boy at the top, so...
Oh, is that a spoiler? Okay, for my number 10 pick, I think, again, if this is a pound for pound, currently, right now, Dustin Poirier at number 10.
Okay.
Which is so low, just thinking about how good he is at boxing, but he is 36 now. He's getting older.
A little bit slower.
Yeah. Takes a ton of damage.
Yeah.
Like a ton of damage. Doesn't have as good head movement anymore.
Yeah, I think that most of the people on this list finished Dustin.
It's so hard because, again, if you we have people from all different weight classes, right? Like we have Tom Aspinall, and we've never really seen him go a long way. So it's like if you put him in a pound for pound style matchup, how does he do against someone who's super technical like Sean O'Malley?
Does that mean that you have Islam ahead of Dustin Poirier?
I think yes, obviously, because you literally outstruck him.
That is true.
Now, okay, I'm going to get on to Dagestani striking. I have a rant about that. But let's move on to our number 9 picks. Dylan, who do you have at your number 9 pick?
My number 9 is Dustin Poirier.
Okay.
Yeah, I was questioning you as if I didn't have him as my next guy up. Basically everything you just said. He's getting older. His head movement's not the same. His movement inside of the ring, he's not as fast. To be in those striking, you need to be able to have fast movements. He's a little bit slower now. Just the age is catching up to him.
Yeah, that's fair. I think my number 9 pick is, again, a pretty controversial one. It's tough, though, because we literally have the best strikers in the UFC.
100%.
So, this list does not mean number 10 is bad. They're just the least best person.
So who's your number 9?
My number 9, unfortunately, probably my favorite fighter right now is Tom Aspinall.
Ooh.
Now, my reasoning for this is because if you watch his striking specifically, he's great leg kicks. He's great speed. And the speed of a middleweight is what carries him in heavyweight. If you put him in a pound for pound style division where he doesn't get faster, he might get a little bit faster, but not comparably moving down to 155.
But I think if you took his speed rating from he's the fastest heavyweight
by far,
and you make him the fastest middleweight, it doesn't affect. Yeah,
it doesn't affect it as much.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not like you can be there is a cap to how fast you can get, right? And I think if you watch him defensively, he gets a lot of criticism, and I'm not totally on the side of he has terrible head movement. But he does hold his chin up in the air.
And he has gotten caught.
He's gotten clipped a couple times moving back, even against Curtis Blades.
And we walked through Volkov too. The Volkov fight, he got clipped pretty good right before he finished him.
Yeah. So there's definitely a potential to get finished if you're Tom Aspinall. But I think his speed carries him in the heavyweight classes. I don't think it would help him as much in a pound for pound style.
I like that.
All right.
My number 8, Islam Makhachev.
Dude, so you have Dustin above Islam.
No, Dustin was my 9.
Okay.
Casual.
All right. I wasn't listening.
I have Islam 1 spot higher. I just think while he's not a striker, that dude's striking is so good. It's stupid. We saw him outstrike Dustin Poirier, one of the best strikers in UFC history, potentially. I think if we look at it just in terms of boxing, I think Dustin Poirier is better than Islam. If we look at striking as a whole, Islam has the slight edge over Dustin Poirier.
For my number 8 pick, this one was difficult because I feel like some of these guys are really close here, especially because they're not at championship level anymore, right? I picked Petr Yan.
Okay.
I think he has unbelievable boxing, and his technique and his just grit is second to none. But if you compare his versatility and honestly, just the guys that he's lost to,
Yeah.
right? Like he has lost to other guys who are strikers.
Yeah, but I would say that I have him a little bit higher, slightly higher. He has been able to keep up with an elite striker like Sean O'Malley late in his career, and he beat Song Yudong, who's a great boxer.
Yep. But I think Sean O'Malley, you know that Sean is never going to go for the takedown.
That is true.
Right? So with Petr Yan, you have to think about, okay, I have to sometimes defend takedowns, but I also have to defend my head. So it gives them another thing to think about. So if you take away the threat of wrestling and grappling at all, I think he does much worse against Sean.
Well, that's why we saw him lose to Marab.
Exactly.
All right, moving on to my number 7. I got Israel Adesanya.
Yeah.
I think pre-305, I would probably have him slightly higher, but nothing in terms of striking that he really did in that fight blew me away or even kept him at the same level that he was previously in his prime. He clearly is not where he was. He's 1-3 in his last 4. You know, he did have that awesome KO of Pereira, but outside of that, in the last few years, he really hasn't done much. And he did do some damage to Dricus. He did do some damage to Sean, but it really wasn't significant enough damage where he had wobbles or anything like that.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Izzy, if you would have asked this like 2 years ago, probably would have been like number 1 or number 2.
100%.
But now I think he's gone a little bit slower. He's showing his age. I don't know. It is just not the same.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's his training or if it's his age. He's been through tons of amateur fights. So at some point, you just start declining.
Street leagues catch up to you.
Exactly. Yeah, so that's totally fair. I think some people might be really upset about that because his striking does look good. And I feel like people are still kind of like in those, 2021 days where he was like peak.
Yeah.
So for my number 7 pick, I have Leon Edwards. I have him quite a bit higher than you.
You did.
But I do think that his striking is so technical. Looking back, like you said, if this is a matchup where the last one to leave, like you have to KO them to get out of there, maybe he's actually not the best pick to go so high up.
His striking is just so technical. Like technically, his striking may be the best in the UFC.
Yeah.
But he's not the best striker.
And he's not a dog.
He's not a dog.
He does not have the dog in him.
Do you think, what are the chances that Leon Edwards would ever have a stand and bang? 0? Negative a trillion? Dude, Max Holloway points at the ground. Leon, even if he was up,
He does his little defense thing.
Max Holloway points up at the ground, up 3-1 on Leon. Leon does that meme where he just starts running around the cage.
Yeah, he doesn't have the heart in him.
Doesn't got that dog in him.
Unfortunately. Who's your number 6 pick?
At number 6, you got Petr Yan.
Okay.
I think really similarly to Izzy, he just isn't where he was 3-4 years ago. I think what is holding him a little bit higher than some of the other guys is I'm valuing the way that he kept up with Sean O'Malley. Mm-hmm. Sean O'Malley is one of the best strikers on the planet. And also in that fight, since they're both strikers, Petr Yan was actually at a very high disadvantage just from the reach difference. He was able to keep up with Sean O'Malley while being significantly shorter in terms of height and wingspan.
Yeah, and that was in, I'm trying to think, was that in the big octagon or the small octagon? That might have been in the small octagon. So I think if you put Sean in a full-size octagon, maybe that outcome is a little bit different.
Yeah.
Because, fighting on that reach is what Sean does.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting how, Sean is really the only fighter that ever complains about that octagon size.
Yeah.
He never wants to fight in that apex ring again. And I think it makes sense, though, because he is significantly taller than a majority of the bantamweights, so...
And I don't think you should have heavyweights fight in that either. They're so big.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense.
The apex is just stupid.
Watching Tom, I think when they redo the apex, they're putting in a full-size ring. I'm 90% sure. But when you watch Tom fight in that apex when he was first starting, it's like you close the distance so fast. Mm-hmm. It's scary.
Yeah.
They're always right next to each other.
Ilya in that cage would be disgusting. You're cooked.
Yeah.
You're just always back against the fence.
So next up on my list at number 6, I have Izzy.
Okay.
Because he's just not where he was anymore, not prime Izzy. Again, 2 years ago, you put him way higher on this list, 100%. But right now, you're losing against Sean Strickland, and I don't even have Sean on this list.
I don't think Sean belongs on this list.
No, he doesn't. So you lose in a striking only match to Sean Strickland. I mean, this might even be too high for him. to be honest.
Yeah, he was a tough one because I think you do have to consider, is he 3 or 4 years ago still at current day Izzy? But he's what, 80-90% of what he was then? So how high is he?
It's tough to say.
All right, moving on to my number 5. This is where I have Tom Aspinall. I just think that the power he has is unreal. His leg kicks, and I think with him, what's so valuable about his striking is that you do have to fear the jiu-jitsu. So that also helps make Tom Aspinall's striking so valuable because of the fear of his jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, he can do anything.
Yeah, so versatile. That is a future video I've been meaning to tell you about. Top 10 UFC most balanced fighters or most well-rounded fighters would be a banger.
That's a good one.
It would be such a tough list too.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably all the Dagestan guys because they're getting so rounded now. Islam, Umar.
Habib.
0 level strike.
Bilal.
All right. I mean, Bilal did outstrike Leon Edwards, so
that is true.
I should have put him on this list.
Yeah, he's actually number 10 for me. Yeah, you put Leon Edwards at 7 who gets outstruck by Bilal Muhammad.
I have to think that was an off night for Leon. I have to, just for my coping sake.
All right. All right, you're number 5.
My number 5 is Islam Makhachev. I think maybe the YouTube comments have been getting to me. Everyone's saying that he's like super underrated in striking because in my blind ranking, I put him at number 4 below Sean O'Malley, which I kind of still stand by.
I don't know how you could put him ahead of Sean O'Malley.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Islam doesn't kick. Sean O'Malley's an elite kicker.
That's true. Yeah, that's very true. The versatility is just different level.
Yeah.
But I think he's still a great striker. And I think that when you have such a strong base of wrestling like he does, you can really focus only on your striking, like in your camps.
Oh, yeah.
You can just improve so much and so fast. And these dudes, they are so smart with their fight IQ. So just like picking their shots and then mixing in the wrestling, I think it makes them so dangerous. And that's kind of the main point that I want to get to with Dagestani fighters specifically, is that when you have such a mental advantage of I can dominate you on the ground, all Dustin is thinking about is do not get taken down. Mm-hmm. I can win on the feet, but do not get taken down. So the fact that that's always taking up some of his mental space, it doesn't allow him to get into a rhythm when he's fighting. Whereas if he fought someone like Justin Gaethje or Dan Hooker, he allows himself to get into the striking rhythm and allows him to get their movement patterns down. But if he's fighting someone like Islam, or he's spending half the round on the ground and doesn't really get any information on him, and then when he's on the feet, he also has to worry about the takedowns because he's like, I'm screwed if he takes me down. It doesn't allow him to actually get started on the feet.
Wow, that was a lot of information. I don't even know if I picked it all up. I guess I'll have to rewatch this video.
No, I think Dagestani striking is overrated because of the takedowns.
Yeah. I see where that's coming from.
Yeah, like you look at their striking.
But it's not their fault.
No, it's not their fault. And it's still good. Like they're still incredible fighters. I'm not saying they're bad fighters. I'm just saying that if you're in the comments saying Islam has the best striking because he outstruck Dustin Poirier, put him in a boxing match, Dustin wins.
Yeah, 100%.
Who's
Maybe
the best
90%.
striker now? Yeah, who's the best striker now? Mm-hmm. Right?
All right, moving on after that. At number 4, this is where I have Ilia Topuria.
Oh, wow.
I think with Ilia, pound for pound, I think he might be the most powerful striker in the UFC.
That's fair.
But I don't know if he is as technically sound striking-wise as the 3 guys ahead of him. And also the 3 guys ahead of him are purely strikers. They have very little ground game. They have defensive ground game, but they don't have offensive ground game. You're not seeing any of them take those guys out. So with Ilia, kind of similarly to what you just said there about the Dagestani fighters, and I said about Tom Aspinall, is with their jiu-jitsu and their wrestling, it allows them to be in the mind of their opponent thinking, oh yeah, this is Ilia Topuria, the guy that just brutally knocked out 5 or 6 straight guys, but his first few fights were all submission wins.
And he submitted Bryce Mitchell.
Yeah, exactly. So that's always in the back of the mind, whereas the guys ahead of him are pure strikers. And I think technically all 3 of them are better, even though Ilia's a little bit more powerful. But I think that technique can get you further for a longer period of time than power.
Interesting. That's I put Ilia a little bit higher, but I do think that this top 4, if you put them in a ring where they could only strike, I genuinely think on any given day, any of them could win.
100%.
They all have the power, they all have the technique, and they all have the experience of being brought up like in striking. And so my number 4 pick is Sean O'Malley.
Okay.
Which, again, I think this could be switched out between him and my number 3, because if you look at Sean's versatility, his kicks are unbelievable. His accuracy is probably the best, but I don't think he has as much power as some of the guys above.
But you got to think, his power as a bantamweight, very few bantamweights are knocking guys out the same way. Like, you look at like Yan and Sandhagen, neither of them have as much power as Sean. And they're both considered elite strikers in the bantamweight division, where you have Sean, who his whole way up has just been chinning guys. I think that's the biggest reason for me, outside of the look, is why Peyton Talbot gets the Sean O'Malley comparison, because they're both chinning guys as 135ers.
Yeah, and I think it's super impressive. But I also think if he were to go up in weight, he might have a little bit more power. Let's say he goes up to 145, fights Ilya. He's going to have more power. He's going to still have decent range, right? A big thing is his range in that division, fighting on the outside. So if you go up in a weight class and that's almost negated a little bit, that could also hurt him. And then the fact that he went to a war with Petr Yan, I think some of the guys who are higher on my list could KO Petr Yan.
But I think that this was also what the Yan fight was a year and a half ago.
Yeah, something like that, like 2 years.
Well, we talked about it in the O'Malley video. He continues to grow with every fight. And I think you also have to look at it as when DC was talking about Topuria and who beats Topuria. He says that Topuria beats Max, but he likes Sean against Topuria for the pure fact that Sean can make interesting stuff happen in that ring.
DC is such weird takes.
He is kind of weird at that. But another reason that I do like Sean a little bit more than you is the kicks. Those leg kicks, those body kicks, those head kicks. Like, his kicking is elite to go along with his elite hands.
Yeah, and his knees.
Yeah.
He has great knees
like
up the middle.
That knee against Cheeto knocks out 99% of the UFC.
Yeah, pretty much. And I think, like, I'm not mad if you put him number 1. You could easily put him number 1, and I wouldn't be mad.
It's so interchangeable.
Who's your number 3 pick?
My number 3 pick? Max Holloway.
Whoa! You love Max Holloway.
I do love Max Holloway, but he doesn't have as much power as the other guy. I'm going to just refer to the top 4 when I'm comparing these guys. He doesn't have as much power as any of the guys in the top 4. I also think his technique is not as good as the guys ahead of him. I think he's a volume puncher, and I don't think that he has the leg kicks of the 2 guys ahead of him. And I think with striking, you have to look at the whole body. And as well as when they're in those exchanges, Max does eat some punches too. And if he didn't have his granite chin, where is he? You know, is he still Max Blessed Holloway without his granite chin? But I think you do also have to consider the fact that he just KO'd Justin Gaethje and outstruck Justin Gaethje, who is the most powerful and best striker in the division ahead of him.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
I think Max Holloway deserves a lot of credit for that, being able to go up and KO someone in the weight class above. And like you said, I definitely think that granite chin helps him out a lot.
100%.
If he was chinny, it would be over for him.
Yeah.
But okay, so for my number 3, I have Alex Pereira, because I think he dominates his weight class. And I know he has like an unbelievable amateur career, 2-time glory champion. So you could easily put him number 1. I'm not mad at that either. But the reason why I have him at number 3 is because I think if you put him at 155 against a guy like Max or Topuria, who I still haven't named yet, I think that he doesn't have the same head movement, and I doesn't think he has the same ability to get on the inside and box. I think that if Ilya and Max made it dirty and it was truly a war, I think Alex Pereira does get tired in those later rounds, and we have seen him knocked out cold.
That's true.
We have never seen Ilya or Max KO'd cold. I don't know. That's just my reasoning.
Yeah, it is just so tough trying to decipher these top guys.
Yeah.
So at my number 2, I have Sean O'Malley.
Okay, that's fine.
I just think that in terms of versatility, I think he's likely the most versatile striker in the UFC. I think him and Leon are up there for the 2 best technical strikers in the UFC. I don't know. I just think that his striking head to toe is phenomenal. I think that his movement inside of the cage is elite. And I think you are underrating his power a little bit. I think he does have some power, and could just also be the fact that he's a 145 or he's a bantamweight. Like you're not gonna KO everyone in bantamweight. And like the amount of times he could have KO'd someone with not as good of a chin as Cheeto in that fight, like he probably had 3 or 4 times where someone with not a granite chin like Cheeto gets KO'd.
Yeah, like someone like Merab is getting KO'd in the first 2 rounds.
100%.
If he puts on the same performance as he did against Cheeto. So that's fair. Yeah. And like I said, O'Malley's an incredible striker. And I think if we see him do 1 or 2 more fights, he'd probably go higher on my list as well. It all depends on how this 308 card goes.
Yeah, from up until now, until 308, like that's where all the top 4 guys are all fighting. So depending on who wins, who loses, we could easily remake this video.
Yeah, actually, you're right, because Alex Pereira is fighting on 307 too.
Yeah, exactly.
Dang, this is going to be interesting. If Pereira loses against Roundtree, this just ruins my life. It won't happen.
I like Roundtree, but I like
He's
Pereira
a cool guy.
more.
Yeah, I mean,
I like what Roundtree stands for. I relate to Roundtree.
people are talking about Roundtree like he's this killer, but it's like KOing unranked guys. It's not the same as KOing the number 1 contenders and previous champions.
Yeah, you have Yuri who comes out here and KOs everyone else, even guys that are ranked, and
you have Jamal Hill, who was really good.
Both those guys are KOing guys inside of the light heavyweight rankings, and both of them couldn't make it past 5.5 minutes with Pereira.
Exactly. And is he the best middleweight that we've seen in the last 5 years? KOs him too. TKO. Yeah. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Okay. I think, Alex Pereira, he could definitely be higher on this list now that I'm thinking about it, just because, I mean, Stonehands.
Hey, we'll talk about Alex Pereira when we get to my number 1.
Yeah. Okay.
Bring us to your number 2.
My number 2, I have Max Holloway.
Okay.
Because his volume is by far the best in the UFC. And so I think that if you put him in pound for pound, we saw him move up and we saw him have even more power. You move him up, you make that fight against, let's say, Pereira and Max, and it's pound for pound. Max has an unbelievable amount of volume, and I think that he could win if he doesn't get caught. Right?
Yeah.
It's all about if they get caught.
Yeah. At 155, Holloway versus Volk, who wins that?
Oh, man. Is
that a different fight than at 145?
That's an impossible question. They both looked great at 155 when they had full counts.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Because we saw Max lose at 155 early. We saw Volk lose at 155 against Makhachev.
And then we saw him lose twice. But the decision loss was a good loss.
Exactly.
You're not putting that against someone's record, really.
No, definitely not. That was like a stock gaining loss. Everyone was like, oh, he went up to 155 and arguably beat the pound for pound number 1 or number 2 guy. So, yeah, I think Max is just like, you have to give him that respect of how long he's been doing it and how consistent he's been. And I think now, like you've been saying in multiple videos, in the last couple fights, we've actually seen him be able to put the power behind these punches and finish a fight when it matters.
And I think also you just have to talk about his chin in terms of striking. Like we're talking about this in a boxing match. Has he been knocked down? Did they count that, Gaethje?
Nope.
Yeah. Never knocked down in his career for someone who's had over 10 fights in the UFC.
Dude, he's had so many
fights, and it's not like he's fighting bums. He's fought Volk 3 times.
Yeah. And Gaethje and Dustin.
Yeah.
And Calvin Kattar and Korean Zombie, Yair Rodriguez, Brian Ortega.
Never been knocked down once.
Bro, he is so good.
Dude needs to PFL sign this guy. After he's done with the UFC, please. Don't take him away from me.
Dude, Max Holloway and Topuria will feed generations. This fight...
Except for Max is old, but he doesn't feel old.
No.
Dude feels 25.
He's only like 32 or something.
Yeah, so he's got 4 years.
Exactly.
8 fights between him and Topuria.
I'm ready. Bring it on.
All right, moving on to number 1. I got Alex Poatan Pereira.
Oh, Glazer.
I don't think so. Because when I was thinking about this, Pereira's power, undeniable. I think he's the second most powerful fighter in the UFC behind Ilia Topuria. I think he's the best point fighter in the UFC ahead of Strickland and Leon Edwards. And my biggest thing for Pereira is the fact that his game is only striking. There may be very few fighters in the UFC with as big of a hole as Alex Pereira.
He's a black belt, though.
Dude has no ground game, purely striking, and that's why this list is made for him. His power, his technique. I also think we have to talk about his mindset. Like the dude, the way that he thinks. And we talked about that Yuri KO where he noticed it early on in the fight and then came back and KO'd him.
Yeah. I think he arguably has the best mindset in the UFC. He is so calm and loose in the cage. Mm-hmm. Like if you compare other fighters who are like, you know, big moment, super pressure, if you watch his fights in the, you know, right before he fights in the dressing rooms, he's chilling.
Yeah.
He's with his boys listening to music.
Shama.
That's like the only time he's happy.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that he really thrives under that pressure. And so, like you said, he is purely striking. Whereas you have guys like Topuria who might throw in some ground game. He has been only striking champion, 2-time world champion in kickboxing. Mm-hmm. You have to put him at number 1 or like in that top three.
In that top 4. So interchangeable. So we were talking about earlier with Alex Pereira about what would happen if it got dirty. But I think that his ability to stay calm allows for fights to not get dirty. When you're watching an Alex Pereira fight, you're looking at a full round, a full fight of him being in control. You never see him start outside of an Izzy fight. I think you did see him on his back foot a little bit more against Izzy, but that's also against a world-class striker when they fought, you know, the guy who could have been the number 1 current striker in the UFC. But his ability to stay calm and keep the fights clean and keep them how he wants them. You know, he is in control of his fights, where I think if you look at these other guys who are in this top, there are moments in the fight where the other guys are in control. But if you look at Pereira's last 3 fights, I would say he might have been in control for 100% of the time.
Yeah, pretty much. Against the Jamal Hill and the second Yuri fight.
Yeah.
He was never on the back foot almost.
No.
Which is crazy. And I think that actually might be a good point, is with any of these strikers, if they're moving forward, they're winning.
Yeah.
If Max is moving forward, he's winning.
If Ilya is moving forward and has you against the cage, it's over.
Exactly. And if Pereira's moving forward and he's like grabbing your hands, doing that weird thing, you're getting shovel uppercutted.
Yeah.
Like, it's over.
Cal Barajo, take notes. Don't poke your opponent in the eye 12 times.
Exactly.
All right, your number 1?
My number 1, surprisingly, when I was making this list, I didn't expect it to be this guy. It's Ilia Topuria. I think that he's going to prove it at 308. I'm getting on the Glaze train before the predictions.
Should we set this up now? Whoever wins the 308 main event goes to number 1, is the best striker in the UFC. Yeah. I would say so.
Yeah, unless Alex Pereira puts on a clinic again.
Yeah.
Against Roundtree.
But I think it's hard to argue that whoever wins the fight between the 2 of the top 4 strikers in the UFC is a number 1.
Yeah, that's fair. Because Cleo Roundtree isn't on the same level.
No.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think Topuria is so good. And I think people... I'm one of those people. I didn't know a whole lot about him before the Volk fight. Like, I'd seen his fights before that, but I wasn't like a Topuria fan.
Didn't you have Topuria?
I don't know. No, I think I had Volk.
Okay.
But wait, I might have had Topuria.
I think you may have had Topuria.
I love to do a troll upset. And everyone
you probably saw him change his Instagram bio and were like, oh, I like this.
Yeah, I like the confidence. But no, I think like genuinely his head movement is levels above almost everyone on this list except Dustin. I think his power, like you said, pound for pound, him and Pereira, 1 and 2 probably.
Yeah.
They have stone hands. Like some people just put people to sleep. And it's weird to say because I don't know like how to describe it. You truly just throw everything behind punches and you get gassed faster, or is it just genetics? Like whoever wins 308, let's put them at the top of this list.
Our pound for pound striking list. Number 1 is decided between that 308 fight, unless Pereira has a crazy knockout.
I mean, he always has crazy knockouts, though. We expect it.
Just don't do my boy Clear Roundtree too dirty.
Yeah. All right. If you guys agree with that list, let us know whose list was better, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Peace.
See ya.